You look good in the summertime. Them tan lines on you make me wanna wine and dine. You bring tears to my eyes cause you that fine. I wanna make you mine. You look good in the summertime. Them tan lines on you make me wanna wine and dine. You bring tears to my eyes cause you that fine. But for the summer over, girl, I gotta make you mine. Yeah. The way you walkin', I can tell you so sweet. You got the case and I just wanna get a piece. See, I know you, but you don't really know me. Ain't tryna sound like a creep, but I've been watching. Your attitude feisty and you know that they can't touch you. You hard on the outside, but just want someone to love you. If you give me the chance, I might be the one for you. You need somebody loyal and somebody that'll spoil you. When it's me, let me show you. You look good in the summertime. Them tan lines on you make me wanna wine and dine. You bring tears to my eyes cause you that fine. I wanna make you mine. You look good in the summertime. Them tan lines on you make me wanna wine and dine. You bring tears to my eyes cause you that fine. But for the summer over, girl, I gotta make you mine. Yeah. I wish I had it in me to come and just talk to you and tell you about the feelings I just caught for you. But you always with your friends and that make me nervous. But these butterflies might be worth it. See, I don't need your Instagram cause I put hearts on you in person. Can tell by that Louis bag that you out here working. I'll be your only fan or only fans cause you deserve it. Here goes nothing, You look good in the summertime. Them tan lines on you make me wanna wine and dine. You bring tears to my eyes cause you that fine. I wanna make you mine. You look good in the summertime. Them tan lines on you make me wanna wine and dine. You bring tears to my eyes cause you that fine. But for the summer over, girl, I gotta make you mine. Hey. You look good in the summertime. Them tan lines on you make me wanna wine and dine. You bring tears to my eyes cause you that fine. I wanna make you mine. You look good in the summertime. Them tan lines on you make me wanna wine and dine. You bring tears to my eyes cause you that fine. But for the summer over, girl, I gotta make you mine. Yeah.
I dig it. Now we're in summer for real, my friend. This is a
summertime to bust out the beats. It was like 72 here today, which is basically summer. It's as hot as it's gonna get. So
yeah, same man. Anything over 50 feels a little bit on the balmy side.
Tropical even.
Tropical. Yeah, I think the tropical folks would probably fight us over that one, but as opposed to the Midwest, I'm cool with it. But welcome everybody. We have a nice alternative Monday for you here on Weekly Whiskey because it's not Tuesday, so we figured we'd buck that. No whiskey tonight. We are talking about brandy. We have quite an evening lined up. A bunch of special guests. We're going to talk about brandy all night long. I don't think. Do we have any big news to cover, John, or should we just dive right in?
One piece of news that it's not fucking Tuesday, and I didn't update the van. I don't know if that's news or not. I mean, that's more or less to be expected. There we go.
Been a
Happy Monday,
quite
fucker.
news day. Yeah, okay.
All right, then. If you don't want to bust off any news, then let's start digging into this delicious grape juice.
I mean, the only news I got is that we have some grade A cognac. So let's talk about that.
F&A Cotton. Let's bring in our all-star panel here. Joining us tonight, we've got Kenny from Pursuit.
Oh, there he is.
Owner. And Jason from Massive Drum. And Mr. DJ from the Rarebird 101 Turkey World.
Howdy.
Damn. Welcome, everyone. This is a full house tonight.
What a lineup.
All-star lineup, if I do say so.
If I don't pat myself on the back. I guess I should open up my bottle now, then, shouldn't I?
Yeah. This would be a good time to smash the top of that off.
Actually, it was funny. So I actually haven't tried it yet. This is my first time trying it. Since we got the bottle, I haven't had a chance. But I'm glad I opened it before I was downstairs.
I was going to say, do you have a knife with you?
Yeah. I realized that when I was downstairs, I was like, I better get this thing open. So I did the first one. You can probably see actually, like one of those wine bottle things, and kind of went around, and I basically just like scraped the cork around, and I was like, well, that's not going to work. So I had to get a pair of scissors. I was like, I'm just going to keep going far down so I can get this thing off of here.
Oh man, if you cut your finger off on this show, I think we'll all get banned from YouTube.
Yeah, you didn't have a horror explicit next to this, did you? So.
No, after I opened mine, I'm like, somebody had to have cut their hand trying to open this at some point, right? Like, I can't be the only one who about took a finger off.
I think
it was more soft wax. I
thought it was pretty soft wax.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
I use one of those. I use the Henkel scissors that have the thing on the inside that you can just rotate around.
Oh yeah,
yeah, the chef's block.
Yeah, okay. I was about to say. Yeah. Hopefully, I'm not talking a language y'all don't understand.
So. I'm with you.
After the 2004 Tertre wax, this was nothing. I don't know that Calvados, Blake. I don't know if you almost cut off your thumb, but that shit needed a chisel.
So it really was, but then we had at least 3 bottles where the wax got chipped in shipment, and I'm like, how is that possible? That stuff was
somebody's trying to open that thing and ship it.
And then somebody sent us a picture, and it's wax all busted up. I'm like, actually, I'm just more impressed that it did bust, so we'll get you a new bottle.
Yeah, this stuff, it's tough, but it's a little bit soft. You can see the lines and stuff, but.
It's a seal box packing job over there.
Just don't get everyone started.
Hey, I think you all. It's head and heels to where we were back in 2018. I think we're very happy.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, for everyone who is watching from home and has not caught the plethora of memos, this is the Tissandier Lot 95 Cognac that was picked by everyone on the call here tonight, which was fun. I think that's the biggest, most distributed panel other than some of the XXX rum, where we had 15 people in 15 different states, sending 20 different samples. But it's fun to go wide on this kind of stuff.
It's like a fucking chain letter from the 90s.
I'm glad you said something, because I was like, oh yeah, that Tessendier. That's what we picked. Yeah.
Yeah, I really killed the pronunciation with my New York accent when I first got this bottle. There's no way.
I'm pretty sure it's got a pecan right on it.
I'm like, it's the Tessendier. It's really good. It's like grape juice. It's good stuff.
It's like communion, but a little
yeah.
Oh yeah. The French, that's always the riskiest. Second to I don't know, maybe Scottish distilleries, where you're like, those letters don't make that sound at all. But and then the Scotsman says it. But yeah, Tissandier, super French, as all French brandy is. But yeah, the French are always a risky for pronunciation.
Luckily, Jay is very nice and doesn't shame you for this. Because I think I called one of the mezcals we did Res Peral, or no, I called it Reprisal for a month. And finally he's like, do you mean the Res Peral? And I'm like, same thing. I just moved a Z around in there somewhere. And that one.
I was digging through my spreadsheets, did we sign off on this? Never even heard of this brand. Oh, it must be new. And I was like, I don't think it's new. Oh,
no,
I know
just
what it
a
is.
moron and can't read.
Oh man, it's not easy stuff. But yeah, so
this stuff is fantastic, though.
Okay, well you led right in my question, which was how is everybody enjoying it? Nicely done. Nice segue.
Yeah, I think what I love most about this one, and a lot of cognacs and brandies in general, is the nose. I feel like the nose is just, it's so good. There's all these stewed apples and just crazy, just dried fruit notes and spice and all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah, when I first smelled this, well, first off, I did a bunch of, because I'm a dork, I did a bunch of research on cognac, so I feel like I could nose something that I had some knowledge of exactly what goes into it and what, how it's made, the double pot distillation, and being only distilled, what is it, through October through March in a certain given time frame. When I smelled these, that was the first thing I got. I actually picked it. It smelled like a good spiked Christmas punch.
Mm-hmm.
with all the cinnamon and apples and even poached pears and just enveloped in grape juice. It was just I was living in the nose when we were tasting these.
Yeah, that's a good lead in.
Ditto.
Same. Check what he said. Check.
I didn't do any research. had them all, and I was like, well, let's just go ahead and let's do this. I think I did mine on like Instagram Live and TikTok Live when I did mine. So
yeah,
but I mean, I knew when we were selecting these, like, I knew first time going through that this was the one that I was going to choose.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't really make something. If you can't, like 10 minutes is kind of boring for a selection, so you got to kind of draw it out a little bit,
give a little drama.
Yeah, I know. And be like, oh, do I really want this one? Yeah, I do. Okay, so
yeah.
But I mean, this one, I think for a lot of people that come from the bourbon world, this is one that anybody's gonna be able to relate to. It just has some of those. It has more commonalities and notes that I think that you're gonna find through a bourbon than any other ones we had through that lineup.
Well, yeah, I mean, this sort of DJ. I'll lead you right in here because what I'm going to say here is going to tie into everything you're going to say. I can already tell. This kind of came about when DJ was talking with me in a little sidebar chat about like the funkier notes and some certain single barrel stuff, and how he was really kind of interested in the correlation between like a dusty wild turkey and some of the brandies that are floating around on the market. And the interest was then sort of moving down the rails a little bit on maybe grabbing a private cask of brandy of some type. And it popped up a little bit. We kind of shelved it for a few minutes, and Kenny rolled it around in his community. And it's like, there's interest there, but it's like a brandy cask is big. They're expensive. There's a lot to it. And we were like, well, what if we do like a friggin' 2000s era super band and just get the all-stars together and everybody picks the most kick-ass stuff, and then we offer it to the widespread community as a whole. And that's sort of where this led off to. And DJ, I'll pass it back over to you now so you can kind of give us your notes of what you thought about it. But I knew that I wanted to kind of kick the show off a little bit, just sort of giving the background on where the pick came from.
Well, whenever I had the tasting for my group, I poured some Dusty Wild Turkey and compared as I was going, which, you know, looking back, I think it was kind of a silly idea, but I'd had Armagnacs, not cognac, but Armagnacs in the past that reminded me of Dusty Bourbon. Mm-hmm. So I thought, well, I'll taste Dusty Bourbon next to these, you know, brandy samples, which I had assumed, because it was a pure blind, I'd assumed they were Armagnac, but they were actually cognac. The funny thing was I didn't really get much of a Dusty Bourbon presence from any of the samples that we got. But what I loved is that I found new profiles that I enjoyed just as much. And, you know, the price point is far better than something you're going to pay for an old dusty, you know, 80s wild turkey. That's for sure. So seriously, you know, the cask here that we selected is extraordinary. It has a ton of flavor. It's very complex. It is not like a one note. It's not Hennessy or something like this. Like if y'all are thinking, you know, brandy, this is what it's going to be like. No, it's got a lot of depth, a lot of layers. As Blake mentioned, the nose is just a banger, and it's killer. And I'm completely happy and thrilled with it. And I think that everybody in my group that took the risk, and I hate to say take the risk, but it's a $189 bottle. So the ones that took the gamble on it were thrilled. And I mean, there were probably 3 or 4 or 5 people that the second they got the bottle and opened it, tasted it, they went and bought another one. So, you know, it's quite impressive, and I'm proud to be a part of this, honestly.
Yeah, I had a couple of people in my group that, you know, pulled the trigger and said, you know, this sounds interesting enough. Let's get one. And they went back and they bought doubles because once they got it, it was that unique and that different. I know Michelle Martin, who's in the chat, and also another one of my patrons, Jeffrey Wack. He was in love with this stuff. He said he was going down the bottle so damn fast. It was so easy to drink. And he was finding new flavors every time he went back. So I think that's another, you know, when you get into a cognac, that's this, you know, up in age. It's not just grape juice anymore. You're looking for these nuances and the funkiness and some of those dusty notes that we love in bourbon too. But, you know, it's a little bit faded in this one, but their funk is still there.
Oh,
I felt like sample 3, if I remember correctly, that one had some crazy funk on it, like a little too much.
It's funky. It's an excellent cask, and I'm quite happy with it.
Yep.
And everybody I've had that I know that have tried it, love it.
Oh, it's because that free shipping. That free shipping pushes you over the edge.
That's right. Keeps it under $200. It's easy to stay within your budget.
But I got to order another one now because I just noticed my wax is cracked. I mean, I could just take that off. I got to get a whole new one now. It's bullshit.
It's no good, man. It's defective. You just send an email to Blake@sealbox.com.
He's gonna be like, I'm gonna reimburse you $1.25 so you get a Bic lighter and melt it again.
Melt that back together. I'll send you a candle and you can do your own wax dipping.
Candle and a Tootsie Roll.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm the same way. Like, this is bottle number 2 for me. It's hurting, but yeah, Tissandier has such a great profile, which is like kind of fun about Cognac. Like, you guys had asked for brandy, and the Armagnac stocks that were available to the US at that time were just not anywhere near as good as the Cognac. So I kind of threw you guys a wild card, and I'm glad I did. Through the Grapevine is probably the best independent bottler of Cognac I can think of, except for maybe one. Now it's probably TTG. Like Treehole is the one you guys tasted that was like mega funky. That was from the Finn-Bois region. It was definitely not using all Uni Blanc like this is doing. It's crazy how much diversity there is. So I'm glad that it gave you something interesting to drink through.
And so on TTG, actually, Serious Brandy on Facebook had a live tasting with the owner, and it was really interesting. So Jay could, and I'm not going to remember everything, so you could probably fill in the details, but essentially they're sourcing from everywhere, right? Like, and they're aging it, and they're just they're a true independent bottler, right? They're not distilling, they're not doing anything like that.
Yeah, TTG, which is short for Through the Grapevine, is a negociant and bottler for La Maison du Whiskey. And their fun shtick is that every year they pull a barrel or several from each of the crus or the regions of Cognac, France. So they have some from Grand Champagne, they have some from Petit Champagne, they have some from Finn-Bois, and they're always sourcing those casks, and they release them unadulterated and as close to barrel proof as they possibly can and stuff like that, which is a huge risky spot, since like Cognac doesn't have to tell you if it has additives. So you really have to look for the people who tell you that there are no additives. Kind of like rum, you have to like do that subtractive math. But Tissandier, through the TTG, like their whole shtick is that it's unadditive. There's no dilution. You're getting stuff straight from the source, which is pretty cool.
And the other thing I didn't know is apparently the colors on the bottle actually tie to the region it's from. I guess there was the Cognac map or something that came out, and so the orange is whatever reason. I guess
it's on the box.
Petit Champagne.
Yeah, it's on the box.
Okay,
yeah, you got all the nice colors.
There you go. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like cereal box, right? You just have something to look at, like while you're drinking, and like, oh, okay.
it was really.
So it's got a word file. It's got a Scrabble in here, yeah.
And actually, if you scratch the box and smell it, it smells of the region. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm like, how could bourbon do that? That'd be kind of cool. But I guess it's just states of America, so that's not as exciting to like, oh, Kentucky. Oh, here's Indiana. Okay.
So anybody who's just jumping in here to join us here, we're tasting through a private cognac cask selection. This is also being broadcast to a handful of different channels. So if you're joining us from the Bourbon Pursuit channel, you might not see some of the chat that's popping up on screen because it's also being broadcast to other places. So if you're joining us for Bourbon Pursuit, we're also on the Weekly Whiskey channel. If you're joining us on Twitch, you're probably like the only person doing it, but hey, I can love you.
Actually, if you're watching on Twitch, you get a free bottle. No, I'm just kidding.
They're probably underage. So
Steelbox.com, and he'll just go ahead and set you up.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Everybody runs over to Twitch and starts commenting.
Yeah. It's weird.
So Jake, I was curious, what are the logistics of, getting samples and doing something like this? I mean, obviously we're all pretty experienced when it comes to bourbon picks and even rye picks and stuff within Kentucky and maybe some stuff within the United States. But what's the logistics of doing something like this? Like, what was it? What did you have to do from start to finish to even get your hands on a cask like this?
Sure. So bourbon is great. Bourbon is all domestic, which makes it really simple. Cognac is tough because you can either decide to take stocks that are over in France or at a broker. But then you have to work through importing them even to taste them as samples. So I kind of went through what was available on the market at the time. We've done Armagnac, like because you guys had talked about brandy, and I kind of thought it'd be fun to throw you a kind of a diverse pool, since Armagnac gets a lot of attention, but Cognac is usually just as good and kind of understated. So I went through the Armagnac stocks that were available to the U.S. market. So they had a lot of companies will give samples or parts of casks to be imported just to be sampled, so people can taste what's available and decide if they want to incur the cost and the time penalty of importing an entire cask from Cognac. But since Through the Grapevine is imported by Velier, they actually had a little bit of stock on hand. I got the last couple of samples for each of these casks and compared them to some of the Armagnac that was available and found that this was probably the best Cognac option we had. And then after that point, like they worked on importing the cask after we'd chosen it and stuff. And then it was in the US pretty quick, which is unusual. But, you know, brandy's tough. That's why I do typically like to fine drams. We do a lot of stuff through an international market, just because like France to Denmark is like a pretty quick hop, but like France to New York is a really long boat ride, and they always put these things on boats. So we're pretty lucky to have had casks that were kind of like already on the way. They knew someone was going to take them. We got first crack at some of the samples, which I'm super thankful for. So we kind of got to cut out some of that time. Like I have rum that we've picked probably last September that's still on a boat somewhere. It's coming over. It's on a boat. Like it'll get here eventually. But yeah, the logistics are a little harder because you have to balance countries and import laws and labeling laws. And dealing with the importer and a retailer and a distributor. But it wasn't too bad in this case.
All right, good to know in case I ever just feel like picking up a barrel of Cognac. Thanks, man.
Yeah, get a fast boat. Get a fast boat. Yeah, those we joke because I had a buddy who bought a whole cask of La Fresh from Encantada, and I think it was on a boat for like 6 months. Like we laughed at him for months. Like I hope the BMW you're driving is really nice, since you like took all of our money and scrammed. Because like it took the boat like that long to come over, and like some of these, you know, everyone kind of jokes about Europe. Like some of these domains, like we did a cask from Grossprin, and we went like a month without an email because like, oh, we took a vacation. You know, they took a 4-week vacation just like unannounced. Like that's just like
that's Europe.
That's just dealing with Europe. Yeah, like everyone knows summer's coming up. Like you might not hear from a European partner for the whole month of, I don't know, is it August or like whatever like the big vacation month is? But yeah, it kind of adds to the pile.
How do I sign up for that? I would also like to go away and not communicate with everyone for 4 weeks.
Yeah, right. Oh man.
What do you mean, Blake? You don't enjoy answering shipping emails? Come on.
You probably only get like 1 or 2 a day, man.
I'll still answer those, but everything else is just.
So they'll find a way to find Blake. They'll be writing handwritten letters and sending them.
Jay, how many bottles was this? Just under 400?
Yeah, Cognac casks are big. This was 372 bottles after a couple squeaked out to people. So distributors like to take 1 or 2 to taste, but 372 were in this drop. So pretty big. And this was on the smaller side, since some Cognac casks will use things like hogshead. So they'll be at 600, 800 bottles.
Yeah, and folks in chat, we still got how many bottles left?
Just about
100. Yeah.
About 100 bottles left available on the seal box.
The seal box.
On the seal box.
On the line. It's on the line. If you can't get it shipped, ask Blake.
Put in that customer support email.
4 installments of $17.99.
I feel like we've got like the ticker thing going down below. Like we're not stopping until we get 10 more bottles sold. Here we go.
Every time you don't look, Blake, I'm doing it.
Steelbox does the easy pay, right? You do the easy pay.
Yeah. Although there really is. There's like some Shopify app that does like the easy pay thing, and it's like, I'm like, look, part of me just doesn't feel right. If somebody's splitting out a bottle of whiskey over 4 payments, maybe they just shouldn't be spending that money on like. I feel a little bit like, you know, those cash advance places who are just taking advantage of people with high interest. I'm like, just pay for it, and if come back with if you have the money, I guess.
I didn't know they would let that go through for booze purchases. Like I see that like whenever you buy apparel and stuff, and they're like, 9 payments of $8.
Yeah, you might need a pair of pants. Do you need a $200 bottle of brandy?
The answer is yes.
Evidently it is. So by all means, get it.
That's amazing. I didn't know they let you do that. That's fun.
Yeah. Jay, we get a good question here. Somebody asked it for what's a good way to kind of get your foot into the brandy pool?
Yeah,
I in, if you would.
I think that if you want American brandy, try Laird's or Copper and Kings. If you want to try a really great Armagnac, Tariquet, Tariquet, and they have a 12-year and a 15-year expression that are great. Delord does pretty well. And then other than that, I would look for things like Pesquet. Martell is kind of like on the Hennessy lines, like Martell, Hennessy. I would try it to see if you like the essence of Cognac, but like if you don't like it, I wouldn't write off Cognac based on
Hennessy. Don't run away because you tried Hennessy or something. I mean, not that you can't get anything good in that portfolio either. I mean, I've had plenty of stuff through those that I like as well. Same with the Martells.
Yeah, Martell Blue is usually actually pretty good. Yeah, Delord's
Martell Cordon Bleu.
Yeah, Martell. I would say.
Question here I wanted to pull up too. Go ahead.
No, Cognac is just so hard because it's kind of like Scotch, but if none of like the independent bottler or like the really nice producers bottled stuff, Cognac is just like full of pitfalls, which is unfortunate because like Cognac, you're either like the big house that owns 20 domains and you're blending everything at hundreds of thousands of gallons to hit a profile at 40%, or you're someone like Jean-Luc Pesquet or it's a Sandier who has just like a cellar of a couple of casks, and in 10 years they'll all be gone and they'll be bordered up and stuff. So there's like a big dichotomy.
So after you guys tried this, I'm curious, did you think back about some of the bourbon finish in cognacs that you've had, or any whiskeys finish in cognacs? And were you trying to find those similarities? I was going back and trying to figure out if I tasted notes like these in anything I've ever had cognac finished.
I didn't actually go back and taste them, considering I just now opened it. So I'm a bad person to ask that question to.
I didn't think about it, but it definitely opened my mind to trying more brandy. I've blown Jay's DMs up a few times asking about different cognacs and armagnacs and brandy in general, because I really enjoyed this bottle, and if I can find something even similar to it, I'm game for trying it, because this is quite impressive. I mean, it's 25 years, and there was a comment that Roger had made about it's interesting to think about. He was 10 years old when this was distilled. Finding a 25-year whiskey, like particularly a bourbon, is not something you're going to see very often at all. And then when you do, you're going to pay good money, and more often than not, it may not be the profile that you're looking for. You're going to have all these dreams of this complex spirit, and it's going to be a lot of oak, which certainly would be a single barrel, right? And but with this, it's 25 years, and it's not just like a one note kind of thing. Whereas like with a lot of older bourbons, you get a tremendous volume of oak. And this is just so layered and complex and fruity and florally. And yes, there's some oak to it as well, but it's not oak in the bourbon sense, at least not to me. Maybe in a more of a dusty bourbon sense, possibly. Yeah. But if anything, there's some interesting notes that you might find on some well-aged ryes. It's very complex, and I can't really say it's exactly like one bourbon or another. But again, 25 years for a spirit that's, like Jay had mentioned, there's no dosing or anything added to this. You're getting straight from the cask essentially. Which I have a question for you, Jay. It talked about how there was a slow reduction, and I'm assuming they add water as it ages, or am I incorrect with that?
No, you're absolutely correct. So that's something to be actually very careful with cognac. Like sometimes you'll see cask strength, but it'll be like 40.9% ABV. So they are typically, and this goes hand in hand with why things are certified or uncertified. So to kind of dig into that first, when we see things like lot numbers, that's because they've chosen not to certify the vintage. And when you certify the vintage, you actually have to pay kind of a consulate representative from the certifying body to come out anytime you want to look at that cask. They seal up the cask. You pay a fee every time you want to open up that cask, whether you want to taste it, if you want to, do any kind of dilution, if you just want to see how it's doing in terms of evaporation. And every visit you're paying, and then you pay a fee on certification when you dump it and bottle it as well. So a lot of domains will add water over the life of the cask, or they'll top it up so that way, you're keeping evaporation to a minimum. Tissandier does very, very little of that, as you're seeing in just the final proof. But yeah, it is naturally adjusted over a couple of years. They'll add a little bit of water to kind of keep things from spiking too high, because they like to keep the proofs in kind of that 50 range, but more closely to 40 for big commercial producers. But this is probably the highest strength cognac you'll see outside of maybe Pasquet. We've done, I think, a 61% and a 62% cask from them, but everyone else is using natural dilution over the course of the cask to get close to 40% and still call it cask strength, which is a very different practice for Tissandier.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen American whiskeys and newer distilleries use this type of method. Iron Root's still awesome. Big call outs, out of Texas. They use this slow distillation method. With the help of Nancy Fraley coming in there with her knowledge of that type of distillation. So it's definitely more difficult, but it does it kind of revives and gives the spirit a little bit more texture.
Yeah, and it certainly helps over many, many, many years. If you're doing a little bit of dilution here and there, and you're kind of working towards a final ABV that isn't, just 40.1 or, the craziest thing to me, I won't note the producer, but we were going to buy a cask of cognac last summer, and we tasted them all at cask strength. And it only took us a week or so to deliberate, and we tasted them. And then we said, okay, this is the one we want. It's still cask strength, right? And they're like, no, we diluted it like from 61% to 40%, like while you were tasting. We're like, but
what happened?
And like all 10 of us were like, but why? And we ended up just being like, hey, that's great for you. We have no idea why you did that. And also we don't want to buy this anymore. Like, hope it goes well.
Anyway.
But like, so yeah,
we're going on vacation anyway, so we'll see.
Talk to you in 5 weeks.
It was crazy too, because the domain had put out a bottling through the grapevine that was at that cask strength, and it was just amazing. And that's what prompted us to talk to them about buying a cask. And since this one didn't come through TTG, they were diluting it while we tasted, and we kind of left it at that. But yeah, a good lesson to understand like what's going into the final proof of your bottling, because yeah, there's a bit more going on in the world of cognac, for better or for worse.
Well, so when you go ahead, I'm sorry, I don't want to jump in.
When you said like certifying the year, or so if it says lot, that hasn't been certified, but if it said 1995 vintage, that would be certified.
Yep, exactly. Okay. So we see certifying a vintage in Armagnac is very inexpensive compared to certifying a vintage in Cognac. It's just the way the certifying bodies work. That's why you see honest to God age statements on tons of Armagnac. In Cognac, you'll either see, if it's like a certified 1979, it'll say that, but it'll be really expensive. And the price, this would probably be 2 or 3 times the cost if they'd certified the vintage of this on like a conservative scale, which is, is crazy.
Yeah.
Can you give us an idea of where this cask was resting? Like, are we talking about a warehouse full of casks? Are we talking about a cellar with like 20 casks? Or do you have any idea of where this actual cask came from to kind of help, with, the price? It's $189, 25 years. To me, it's fully justified, but there may be some folks watching that don't understand how, these are not like, this isn't Kentucky. This isn't just like tens of thousands of barrels in a rick house kind of thing.
Yeah. If you have pictures of like the family that distilled it and, the farm, and a little bit more about like the chickens, what their names were, that'd be great too. Just so we have a complete circle.
I'm trying here. Kenny, come on.
Yeah.
I'm just messing with you.
Don't forget about the Italian grandmothers that stomp the grapes with their teeth.
Gives it that umami flavor.
Yeah. Gives it that natural funk.
Yeah, it's interesting because like Tissandier is like a fairly large estate, so I wouldn't say that they're the most rustic, like the most like small batch, but a lot of these places, it's really interesting. They're producing cognac, brandy, Armagnac, whatever, from like leftover crops. So some places are dedicated cognac houses, but a lot of farmers are actually distilling what fruit they can't use for other produce. So like we see it a lot in Armagnac. They'll say like distilled on traveling still, which is quite literally a guy that has a still on a wagon and like carts it through the countryside, and whatever fruit is not being used in one form or another gets distilled into cognac. They put it in their cellar, which is either like a wet or dry cellar. They'll hold on to it. Like that's kind of their retirement. When it gets of age, they'll sell it for money and they'll bank that in the bank and stuff. But Tassandier is kind of between like a big commercial operation and like tiny family farm. They do have 1,000+ barrels, like they have space, but like this one was aged in a wet cellar, so it's like damp. It's not climate controlled. They're kind of just letting these things hang out and get kind of nasty and fun. And they tap them every now and then. And when they decide to sell them off, they bank the profits for things like retirement or for farm equipment or for just kind of keeping the lifestyle going. But this is not a Kentucky rickhouse. They're not throwing these things up to hold 40,000, 50,000, 60,000 barrels, every summer or whatever pace Bardstown's doing now. It's probably not every summer.
So on the scale of rarity, this is up there.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're talking about the entire producer having 1,000, maybe a few more barrels more.
And that's across 25 years of production for Tassandier.
Yeah. And some of these places.
Let's try to butcher it every single time we say it.
Tassandier.
If you can pronounce it uniquely every time, I will just buy you a bottle and send it to you.
Yeah. I love a good cognac.
Nailed it. This guy probably drinks a lot of Merlot.
So I've got a question for the group. Really, I think everybody could chime in with opinions, but and I'll start with my opinion, so that way I don't sound like I'm just throwing it out there. But why do you think bourbon drinkers in general aren't diving way more into cognacs and armagnacs? For me, I think it is because there's not like that easy option on the shelf that's $50 or less. I think you get some of these $200 bottles and they're fantastic, but starting somebody into bourbon, you can send them to Buffalo Trace, Eagle Rare, all these. I get it; it's domestic, that plays a big role. But any other things why you think there hasn't been an even bigger, transition from a lot of whiskey people to brandy?
I mean, it's probably because a few years ago, some guy came out with a Pappy map of where you could find it, and it just completely dried up inventory across the nation. So we had to find something different. Yeah,
I need the Tassandier map, is what you're saying.
Get a map.
Some of the most entertaining comments on the internet ever were on that map post every year. I mean, it was just, I know this guy from like 3 years ago, his so-and-so friend, died and da-da-da. It was like, there was always some reason for like, you've got to help me get the Pappy.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I think for the most
sob
part,
stories.
Yeah. I think for the most part, it's lack of, you have lack of options in most areas. You also have lack of education in the spirit. And plus it's just not the hot thing. Right now, bourbon and American whiskey is it's so on fire, and so the bubble is still growing. To me, I just don't see another option like this coming in and taking that down. While you would like for bourbon drinkers or rye drinkers and American whiskey drinkers to expand their palate and try something different. I think this bottle is a really good opportunity for people to do that.
Yeah, I think a lot of the finishes that are going on are going to tie into that too, right?
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. You have a lot of different types of bourbons and American whiskeys being finished with the Armagnac, Cognac. I just did a review today with the Sauternes, which is a French wine. So sweet French wine. You have all these different types of components in American whiskeys that can pique people's interest in trying different things. I mean, I would never thought I'd be researching cognac until this came along. So,
I mean, I think with a lot of things that we do, and we take a kind of a quote from like my actual day job is, we stand on the shoulders of giants, and the fact that there are people that have been doing this long before us that we've looked up to. You look at groups like 1789B that have carved the path of what bourbon whiskey is today in regards of being able to get. They were doing barrel picks before anybody was doing barrel picks. They could walk into Buffalo Trace and buy whatever they wanted. I mean, then they got to the point where they were getting snubbed out of. They can't get a Four Roses barrel selection. They can't get anything. None of the liquor stores will work with them because their liquor stores want to keep their own barrels now. And so they figure out, well, what's next? What are we going to next? And I think they carved the path. They were the first ones that really started putting Lankentada on the map for a lot of people, and especially for the bourbon crowd. And I'm one of those people too. If we finally see this crazy orange wax bottle going up for an auction or a Powerball or whatever it is, and some of these groups, somebody's like, what the fuck is this? And you start researching about it, and then all people are going crazy over it. They're like, well, I better not miss the boat too. And I'm glad I hopped into it. You know, got early with some of those Lane Cantata, picks and stuff like that. And now it's, you know, we're kind of following suit on what they're doing. So I think it's just a natural progression. There's some people that are on the forefront of it. And, you know, we have all of us have a pretty good social following and a great amount of people that like the work that we produce, and they trust what we pick. And I think that's one of those things that we're also helping lead more people that are relatively new to this scene into trying Cognac and Armagnac and everything like that now. That was my long-winded answer.
I love it.
F&A, Kenny.
I approve, and
with no sarcasm whatsoever.
No, it's super genuine, and like it helps lead to the point of why I'm so passionate about Cognac. Because I talked to a lot of people like, "Hey, have you had Cognac?" And they had Hennessy, and it was terrible. And I'm like,
right,
that like could not like that's, you know, if you tried Thompson and thought it defined whiskey, or, you know, if you tried, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of like the worst spot, like, you know,
Jack Daniels, and you say I don't like bourbon.
Yeah. You know, and then you get people that are like, oh, it's Tennessee whiskey. But like, you know, the world of Cognac is so deep, and there's so much enrichment. There's like so much opportunity to try new and fun, crazy things that just like are not well represented on the shelves. And, you know, a lot of those groups like Brandy Brothers and 1789B have done so much to bring, like, you know, the modern scene of importing Cantata would not be the same if they didn't start what they were doing. And bourbon drinkers everywhere, and drinkers in general, are way better for it.
Yeah, happens with Scotch too. I mean, the first Scotch somebody tries is an Ardbeg or a Lafroig or a Lagavulin. That's it. Scotch is over. If they're not ready for that peat and that smoke, they're just going to write off Scotch. So you have to start on the right path.
I think. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I think it's all about growing in the hobby and becoming more open-minded. And a lot of us have learned that over the years through things like blind tastings. So you have this opinion in your head of how something tastes, and then you do a blind tasting, and they're like, oh, by the way, that was so-and-so whiskey or whatever. And you're like, the one that you knock all the time, you know, and you're like, oh, I loved it, you know? And so there's a little bit of that, you know, you have to kind of go in open-minded and, you know, accept that, you know, what you're tasting may not be exactly what you're expecting, I guess, is you know, and with brandy, for me, it's such a large category. And I think back on like Cavassier and Hennessy and all this type of stuff. And that's not what this is, you know. It's just a totally different experience to me. So you have to be open-minded.
Definitely. And I think a point too, like Jason mentioned, like the big peat bombs. This is almost to me like, if you trust the people who've tried like Cavassier and like Hennessy, it's like kind of giving them like the Buchanans or like Ballantines of Scotch, right? Like it's watery, it's not super unique, it's pretty high in ethanol. Like getting them to those enthusiast bottlings that like show off the best things that Cognac and brandy can do is usually all it takes. But it's kind of hard to buy here, which doesn't make it easy.
Yeah, I mean, and also there's a little bit of a price barrier too. It's not like you can go get the like Evan Williams bottled and bond version of this.
Oh yeah.
To be like, oh yeah, okay, I kind of get my foot in the door. I understand it and wrap my mind around it. And now I'm ready to spend a few bucks more. I mean, really, I think so. For me, this was always like a Christmas time thing. I'd always be like, whatever, I'm going to throw $100 at a bottle or $200 at a bottle, and I'm not going to get too hurt if it's not something I'm crazy about. But hey, maybe I'll get something that I think is really cool. And just doing that is sort of, you know, I've been doing that for years and kind of dialed in on like, oh yeah, I really like some of the stuff from Martell, or I like some of the expressions out of Delord. And that's where I sort of dug into the older stuff, was like some of the late 60s Delord, and really kind of liked what they were doing. And, you know, there's not really a good comparison to that on the American brandy side, or the cheaper side even, really. I mean, so it can be tough for the bourbon drinker who's, I think, kind of spoiled, honestly. I mean, the bourbon market is huge, and the prices, sure, they go high, but you could do a lot of damage for under $75 in the bourbon world. Yeah. So that correlation is a little bit of a tricky piece to navigate for a newer brandy drinker, but it's doable. I mean, there's even some American stuff, like Jay and I are pretty big on, you know, some of the not so expensive American brandies that are still really pretty tasty. So not the same, but you could definitely kind of feel it out.
Yeah, $25 for Sacred Bond, buy it. If you see Cognac for $25, just like don't touch it. Like that's bad news. Just
yeah, Sacred Bond all day. Grab
that's
that.
like $39 Scotch. Like you're in risky territory. Like it could pay off, but like you're taking a risk.
So maybe some of you guys are more well versed in Cognac. I read somewhere when I was doing my research that Cognac can also be served warm. Is that a thing where people warm it up before it's served?
That's what that big snifter's for.
What does that entail?
So like we tell people, it's fine if you want to drink whiskey on the rocks, but the colder it gets, the less taste you perceive. Brandy is big on aromatics. If you get that big snifter and hold it in your palm, like that's going to heat it up, and the warmer it gets a little more expressive. So unfortunately, the warmer it gets, the ethanol also shines out a bunch more. So if you it's like a warm.
So you take a lighter to it? Do you hold it up?
Yeah,
you freebase
129
it.
degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah, you freebase it for sure. You need to huff it.
Yeah, if you're not like huffing the secondary like distillation, you're doing it wrong. But
That's
warm just means more flavor. But I mean, I drink out of a tiny little glass. I don't buy one of those big snifters. So it's
I go as far as to call it dainty.
Like
I
very
actually have a really big ass brandy snifter in the basement. We actually, as I remember when we were buying a bunch of glass for our stuff, Ryan and I, we both ordered like big ass brandy snifters for both of us. And so we each have two of these glasses. I've never used it. And I was like, oh shit, I totally forgot about it. I have it downstairs.
Would have been the perfect time.
I know.
Seriously.
I would pay like a non-zero amount of dollars for like a portrait of you and Ryan with like the snifter, like, oh, hello, welcome to Pursuit United.
I feel like that's a sticker idea.
Yeah.
I don't hate it.
Can we talk about the sticker on this?
Lay it on us.
You did a great job. You did a great job, by the way.
First of all, this came from the mind of David Jennings.
Well,
is that a dangerous place to be? Is that
we picked it in the winter at nighttime. So there you go.
I'll slap it on the screen here.
And the other thing was, if we did this again, you could have an act 2 or act 3 or whatever, But
it was cold that night. It was like -25 here.
Wow.
Yeah, it was no joke.
Wasn't that cold here?
Yeah, I think it was like 70 in Florida, so it was pretty chilly too.
Yeah,
this is a long sleeve t-shirt.
I was drinking those samples outside to see if they hold up.
That's right.
Oh man,
That's how you know that they're good.
Unreal.
I freebased mine, and that's why I knew I wanted to pick this one.
That's how you knew that was the winner.
Of course you did.
That's the label. That's not the
picture.
actual bottle, though.
Oh, well, here we got
I just wanted to try to put the label up where it would be a little bit more visible there.
That looks, you can see it.
It looks representative of a blend of straight rye whiskeys that folks may have enjoyed in the past.
Somehow maybe finish in a port cask.
Something like that.
On the Lower East Side.
Well, it worked.
And no, High West is not on the case, thankfully.
No.
Nope. High West they're busy classifying everything as a limited edition and reducing its.
Yeah,
and changing their labels
limited
too.
editions.
Dude, the new Rendezvous Rye, the label does look very nice.
Yeah,
I will admit.
It wouldn't surprise me if they start changing them all. So
I bought it out of spite, and it looks really nice.
They're doing an interesting, would we call it a rebrand? I mean, because the double rye kind of evaporated off shelves here.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody told me it wasn't coming back, and then I heard it was. But anyways, I know this isn't a roundtable, so I won't throw in another another discussion point. But it is interesting.
What I think is interesting about them changing the labels, and now, y'all might be a lot more familiar with this than I am. I'm going back on memory, and it may have been like, it could have been Bourbon Pursuit or something. I'm not sure, but Dave Perkins talked about when he created High West, the labels were a throwback to bottles of hundreds of years ago, that you would have a square image on the bottle because a lot of people were illiterate. And so the bottle picture basically was assigned to you to what that particular spirit might be. Does anybody remember that? I'd have to go back and dig. It could have been an article. It could have been a podcast, but
it wasn't
now.
us.
No, it might have been a Reddit AMA. I'll have to dig a little bit. I could be way off, but I'm pretty certain that's where that came from.
In that case, I should know it, but I don't.
We should get a Reddit guy here.
All right. Well, crack the knuckles and get on it.
Hold on, you don't remember everything that's posted on Reddit? Come on.
But I'm pretty sure that's what the little square. Yeah, that's why they all had the little square.
It makes
images.
Sense. Yeah.
But someone will have to verify that, and then I can look like a jackass later. So,
although the good news is, Kate said she's ready for a round 2 if we are. So
I'm on board. We could do brandy. We could do rum. So,
whatever you're comfortable having sitting on the books there, Blake.
A rum sounds interesting, but I'm a little worried about Jay's boat. I'm not really sure what's happening.
It's authentic rum.
We got boats going everywhere.
I'm the captain now.
Like if we're gonna get a rum, if we're gonna get a rum, that shit needs to be delivered by a pirate. Just saying.
We have to pay him we'll have to fork over a couple extra $1,000 or something.
Oh,
the pay him in booty.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Kate and I have some rum plans, but we will hold on to those for now. But Yak is always on the books. It's fun, like because there is a lot going on with this kind of stuff, but Cognac is vibrant and fun and interesting. And we were talking about something else, like High West, their labels. Yeah, I think that their new design is interesting. I don't know if I totally like what they're doing, but I wish them the best and hope maybe.
Now, aren't the new labels just centered around artists? Isn't that the idea of the new labels?
Yeah.
Like artists' interpretations of how they feel the whiskey talks to them. Isn't that basically what the idea is?
I kind of thought it was a pivot from like looking at the past where they had to buy whiskey that was distilled before they existed to like looking towards the future, which is like art and new blending. But
okay,
I failed a high school AP Lit like once, so I don't know. My interpretation is just as invalid.
Yeah, I mean, I agree though. Everything it seems that High West is putting out is a special edition. Even, I mean, the ones that are even available at the distillery, the ones that are released, everything's a limited engagement to me.
Or distillery only, yeah.
Yeah, or distillery only, yeah.
Yeah, it used to be an LE, now it's distillery only.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. But yeah, so far, High West has either not noticed a Midwinter's Night Yak or they don't care, which is perfect.
That'd be great.
We're probably giving them too much press already. We're talking way too much about them here.
Yeah, probably.
Seriously.
High West is like, guys, sales went up 0.3% and we can't account for it.
Well, I'm looking at this label. So, I mean, Jay, I think it'd be good to explain to people La Maison de Whiskey as well, so they have an understanding of kind of like this store and how they're also like one of the few people around the world that actually have like their own private Blantons and stuff like that too.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean, so La Maison de Whiskey LMDW is just Goliath behemoth of a retail operation over in Europe, and they do some of the coolest stuff. They get private blends. Anything that they've touched, like they've probably gotten the special version or the eclectic enthusiast version of this or that. But they also work in combination with Velier. So you get La Maison Velier is an importer here in the United States. Actually, shoot, I should know this better. Retailer importer. So they're working to sell products like Habitation Velier, which is a rum brand. They're doing things like Through the Grapevine, which is a La Maison project. So they kind of, based on which continent they're on, their operations kind of flux a little bit because we have 3-tier here in the United States, which is tough. But Through the Grapevine is basically the signatory vintage of kind of Cognac brandy. They're going through each of the crews, and that relationship, this bottler being born out of the retailer because the rules are different in Europe, has given us some really great access, and they've been doing it for a while. Like the Commendon I had that was fantastic is 2 years in the past from today. And they were well established by then. So they're kind of a blend of if you got to be an IB and also a retailer and also kind of a distributor importer. And they work with Velier here in the United States, so like we can get some access to this as well. AK, it's really complicated and annoying because we live in the United States.
Thank you for the history lesson.
Yeah.
and we see, like, if you see Kate Perry and Jan Warren in the chat, they both work for Velier on the United States side. So if you are loving some of the rums like Clarine, which we have some of at Sealbox as well, Clarine is done by Velier, Habitation Velier and stuff like that. So lots of cool stuff, like all outside. Like they do great whiskey, and even wider than that, they do all sorts of spirits, and they're very tuned to it.
So I guess let's go ahead and buy some plane tickets.
Yeah, can we just all go to Paris? Can we just go to Paris right now?
Yeah, the next selection is going to be on site.
Yeah.
We're going to take the Sealbox PJ though. That's the only way.
It's the only way to travel, you know. Either that or the boat that brings the cognac over.
Yeah, no, you don't want to go on the boat, man. That's a long ride.
You know, I did think if we did do a second, you know, it would be very hard to top this, and that's kind of scary to me, because this is just so damn good. Where would we go? You know, how would we top this? Is there another kind of, you know, variation, Jay, that we would venture down, or
age it in a turkey barrel?
Oh, well, there you go. Done.
Blasphemous everywhere.
I was going to say, let's just say what David was thinking. We got to talk to Eddie Russell. He's going to do his next Master's Keep in our cognac barrel. That'd be great.
that is true. How do we get the empty cask? How do we? I guess that's a pretty expensive one.
It's already gone. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, next time we figure that one out.
It is fun because as a part of Aficionados group, we've bought quite a bit of cognac and Armagnac brandy, and those casks are sitting at a place in Europe with some undisclosed contents being re-aged in them. But it is really expensive to bring a cognac, especially because it's just like they're fucking huge, you know.
Yeah.
You know, twice the size of a bourbon barrel across the ocean kind of adds up. But like, if you've talked to Christian Huber, he's buying stuff like this. He's buying a couple of this and a couple of that and shipping them over at great expense. And, you know, it's interesting to see people who see the value in those casks because they have a lot of life to give, but we don't always see them end up here in America.
I was about to say, I was like, if you end up having an extra cask, I've got some extra bourbon barrels, so we can dump some bourbon barrels into them. But
there we go.
I'm not paying for an experiment gone wrong. Not yet. We got a few more years until
you must get bigger
barrels. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to get bigger until you can have expendable barrels.
Yeah.
Experimenting.
Yeah. I'm not a believer until we see Pursuit Skunk Works. Like,
I want to see Pursuit RTDs. Yeah. So Pursuit Ginger.
God, I'll tell you what, if I could, I would, but that's one path I don't think I'm ready to truck down yet.
Well, Kenny, you brought up a point earlier. I thought I saw in the chat the maybe possibly doing something with Copper and Kings. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, it's right down the street from here for me, so nice and easy. But I've been trying to talk to them for like 2 years now, of trying to get a barrel, and it just always comes up dry.
Wow.
But the other part of it is being in a whiskey group. It's kind of hard to also convince, you know, a bunch of people to buy your brandy that you're selecting. So getting it amongst the group makes it a little bit easier. I'm very happy to do that as well. And I've been pleasantly happy. I've been pretty happy with everything that I've had from Copper and Kings. So it's not as, I wouldn't say it's as like delicate or as well balanced as something like this. A little bit more like, you know, it's a little bit more on the higher proof side, if I remember correctly, a little more like punchy in the mouth kind of thing, but still good.
Yeah, Butchertown is like the Booker's of brandy for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you've had Butchertown, like I think that's like 62.5%. Like it is just like kapow.
Yeah, it's no joke. Jay, we're coming up here on the top of the hour here. Let's
this stuff goes down
to close this thing out. Go around the horn again.
This stuff goes down way too easy.
Yeah, even if for a neck pour, it was still pretty good.
Oh,
fucking guy.
Oh, the old neck pour.
Oh, even when I live in brandy, the bourbon world follows me.
Can't escape it.
The only conversation I thought I wouldn't hear neck pour, but here we are.
Yeah. So so when the taters hit brandy, is it a tatier? Is that what we're gonna start calling them?
Oh yeah, we'll just put like a tilde over everything. We'll just blend languages and. This was done, by like we need to figure out who like was the Stitzel Weller of like France and like give them a very French name like Stitzel Weller. I don't know.
Are you kind of putting forth the idea we should call them French taters, like French fries?
I think they would call those chips.
Okay, how long have you been sitting on that one? Because that's too good to just be on the spot. You definitely thought about that.
You was up till like 3 a.m. right now.
I was waiting for the perfect opportunity for that one.
Yeah, we saw that editing after hours. You were stewing on this guy.
That's right, I was. Yeah. All those late night editing streams. That's when I get my best ideas.
Yeah,
unreal.
This guy,
unreal, shameful.
Shameful. So on the nose, terrible.
Shit.
Taters. That's funny.
All right. DJ, start bringing us around here.
All right. Well, thank y'all very much for having me on. And thank you for letting me be a part of this cask selection, because damn if it ain't one of the best bottles I've had my hands on. I ain't joking. If you want to see what I do, which is largely wild turkey, you can go to rarebird101.com. I have a Kickstarter I'm working on right now. That's at wildturkeybook.com/Kickstarter for my second book. Thank you very much. And I'm on Instagram at rarebird101 and Twitter at rbird101. And again, thank you guys. This has been great.
Hell yeah. Mr. Blake.
Yeah, I'm Blake from Bourboner and Sealbox. So, guys, thanks for having me on. Always fun. It is cool. You know, we kind of alluded to it earlier, but just to bring bourbon people into the brandy world, because, man, there's some fantastic stuff out there. And, yeah, just really cool to be able to drink this, be a part of the selection, and then come on here and have a little fun and talk brandy and cognac for a little while. So, thanks.
Thank you for being the retail partner on this, man. Jason.
Again, want to thank you guys for having me on. Thanks for asking me to be a part of this pick. One of the truly, unique and exceptional picks I'll always remember. I have a backup of this on the way as well. So I love this so much, and it's going fast. So I want to thank you guys for asking me to be on this. You can find me on YouTube at The Mash and Drum. You can also find me on Instagram. You see down there below, and also on Twitter at Mash and D. If you're just looking for some no-nonsense reviews with some history behind it, definitely check me out. I also have a Patreon. If you want to get connected on that, we're doing a bunch of cool barrel picks coming up, including an Elijah Craig Barrel Proof and a Wilderness Trail rye single barrel as well. So hope to see you there.
Butter Beacon.
Well, I'm all about the nonsense, so make sure you follow us for all that. But guys, this was awesome. Selecting something here from Top Senders from TTG here. Loved it. Love the cognac. Even though I screwed up when I called it an Armagnac, and you were like, it's not an Armagnac. I'm like, all right, fine, we'll go ahead and re-edit and send it out. And still nobody cared, but it was still delicious. But semantics, you know how it is. But you can follow us, Bourbon Pursuit, the official podcast of bourbon. Thank you, trademark to Blake on that one of coming up with that name right there. So
that's another thing I should have trademarked. That poor man's Pappy. I'd be sitting on. I wouldn't even be joining y'all tonight had I.
Be on the steel box, PJ.
Got to give him a nickel for every royalty every time I say it.
If only Cal Ripken knew his potential.
Seriously.
But of course, Bourbon Pursuit, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Pandora, you name it. But you can also follow us on all the socials as well. Bourbon Pursuit on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, coming out with all kinds of fun stuff. We're actually right now going through booking our guests for the second half of the year right now. So I'll be kind of announcing who we'll be having on the show here in the next few weeks once I get it all nailed down. I think we got like 2 or 3 more to kind of get times booked for, but super excited to get all the recordings done here for the rest of 2021 here in the next 2 months. So it'll be a very hectic but very fun time. But again, thank you all for having me on, and the shit's delicious. I'll probably end up going buying another bottle now because I only got one for myself, one for Ryan, and that was a mistake.
Oh man,
yeah, Big Cecil's gonna want another one of those.
I mean, yeah, he doesn't even know I bought him one for him yet, so who knows? Maybe I just don't tell him.
It might be a good move.
I love it. Well, cool, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been an absolute blast. yeah, for fans who are still looking, there are a couple bottles hanging out at sealbox.com. This is the Through the Grapevine to Sandier, lot 95. If you type any of those words in the search bar, it should get you where you're looking for pretty easily. You can pronounce it any way you want, type it the same, you'll find the sale page. But if you're looking for more from John, you can find him at the Bourbon Finder or thebourbonfinder.com. He's writing up all sorts of great stuff, as always. And I am Jay from Whiskey Raiders, also the founder of Aficionados Group, which does all non-whiskey stuff. So if you're looking for things like bourbon, not bourbon, brandy. Wow, that went too easy. If you're looking for literally anything but bourbon, we are doing agave, we are doing rum, we are doing brandy, both Armagnac and Cognac. So we have a lot of cool stuff to check out at aficionadosgroup.com. But I'll let John bring this one home with the outro. But this has been great, guys. This is fun, exceptional cask. I'm glad you guys picked this. Tasting it, I was hoping secretly deep down that this would become at least like a majority favorite, and it ended up being unanimous, which was a dream come true. Because
thank you, Jay. You really, I mean, we owe this to you and Blake for really making this happen. John, you too. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly, guys.
Cheers, guys, for it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Cheers.
And thanks to Velier, who brought in a great cask and let us buy it. So
amen.
3 cheers to the folks at Velier.
Anybody kicking around here who's interested in some turkey talk? Tomorrow night we're going to be on with Bo Garrett, who works over at Wild Turkey.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought you might like that, DJ.
Bo's the man.
So
love Bo.
Tune in tomorrow night here on the Weekly Whiskey Channel, and we'll be kicking it at 9 p.m. Eastern time with Bo. Talk a little bit of turkey, talk a little bit of music, and have a hell of a time. So
shoot me that link when you get it ready, man.
Absolutely, man. I'll be going out later tonight, and you'll see that showing up.
Good deal.
All righty. Fellas, thank you again. Everybody else in the chat, thanks for stopping by. I had a good time. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers, fellas.
Cheers.